I'm covering a cyberpunk classic from the man, the myth, the underrated Yoshiaki Kawajiri. Of course, it is Cyber City Oedo 808. After adapting the works of Hideyuki Kikuchi, Wicked City, and Demon City Shinjuku, Madhouse Animation Studio wanted to make something more original. Working from a concept by Juzo Mizuki, director Kawajiri and company worked on the script.
The big and really obvious name among the crew of Cyber City Oedo 808 is Yoshiaki Kawajiri. He's one of the founders of Madhouse, and he was right at the top of his game when he made this. And Kawajiri himself had this very pop art aesthetic that really carried across well. He didn't object to night shooting. He was very happy to work in dark shadows, and he got around halation issues by using lots of blue. He used a very, very dark blue, and he would offset that with bright light shining through, but also with flashes of red.
The original plan for Cyber City was something along the lines of Lupin III, but then it became more gritty with a more cyberpunk touch. It was released in the OVA format to take advantage of the home video market that was really booming during the 80s and 90s. Don't worry, I am using the English dub with the Rory McFarlane soundtrack for this video. Our story takes place in the future in the year 2808. Three cybercriminals named Sengoku, Gogol, and Benton are given an offer by the Oedo Cyber Police. And since each one is serving roughly 300-year sentences for their crimes, they decide to take him up on the offer.
For every A-class cyber criminal you apprehend, the state has very generously agreed to knock a bit off your sentence. We can't say fairer than that. I think that's a pretty good deal for scum like you lot.
I don't think anything could be worse than being in here. If you want to give me a chance, you can count me in.
Yeah, me too. Any chance of getting my freedom has got to be better than no chance.
Okay, I don't want to buck the trend. I accept your most generous goddamn offer. Like I've got any choice.
Now, the reason why this OVA is called Oedo 808 is based on a pun, because during the Edo period of Japan, Tokyo was divided into 808 areas. Get it? Oh, Edo 808? I just thought that was interesting. What's also a cool detail is that each of them is given a jite, which was a weapon used by the police during the Edo period. Now, there is a catch when it comes to working with the cyber police. Each one is fitted with an explosive collar around their neck, and it will stay on during the duration of their assignment, as it were. If they fail one of their missions or try to run away, they're dead. A bit of an escape from New York thing with that, with a touch of the Running Man, I suppose.
Get your ass down to the station now, and if you're very lucky, I won't explode the collar around your worthless neck. Take Gogol and Benton with you, and fill them in on the situation. You this up, and I'll pop all your collars. Now you got 23 hours and 16 minutes to go.
The first episode deals primarily with Sengoku. He is sent to a skyscraper, a very, very, very tall skyscraper, where over 50,000 people are trapped inside because the central computer was hijacked. He, along with Gogol and Benton in supporting roles, so to speak, Gogol working the computer and Benton lending support, Sengoku has a little bit more motivation to do this assignment as he has a little girlfriend named Okio, who also works for the cyber police. She's trapped in an elevator.
How many people are with you?
About 10.
That's not too bad. Let's just hope none of them got diarrhea, huh?
Oh, ho, Sengoku, very funny.
I do my best. Look, I gotta go. See ya.
You always knew how to charm the women.
It's just my way of telling her she's in deep.
Throughout the course of this episode, Sengoku and company learn that the deceased co-worker of one of their suspects, Kurokawa, is somehow alive and in the mainframe, and is seeking revenge against Kurokawa for his death. To complete the mission, Sengoku will have to arm himself with a magnum that would make Harry Callahan proud, and avoid all kinds of obstacles and dangers to save the day. Oh, and also prevent the skyscraper from completely collapsing. Yeah, I should also mention that my goal with this video isn't necessarily to talk about every single episode in great detail, but it's more to give you a kind of introduction, as it were, to allow you, the viewers, to find this for yourself and watch and see what happens. Now, some of you may be noticing from the clips I've been showing that this dub is rather colorful with its language, shall we say.
Raise the drawbridge.
I can't do that without a reason.
Because, head, the I'm supposed to arrest will be over the hills and far away if you don't. It's far too late for a little lad like you to be out on his own. It's way past your bedtime, mother.
I am authorized to extend the state's congratulations on the success of your mission.
You whooped a dude. Just piss off and let me enjoy my mother hangover in peace, will you? What a mess. A whole city out of control and all because some for brains computer got hijacked.
Why don't we start working together again?
One day maybe, but for the time being I have to be a cyber cop, at least until I can get this collar off.
Don't crap your pants if you see a vampire out there.
Get lost. You wouldn't recognize a goddamn vampire if one jumped up and bit you on the end of your dick.
To make a mistake is human, but to really things up, you need a computer. Ain't that right, head?
Well, that's because this dub was created by Manga UK, and in quite a few of the animes that they would dub, they would pepper them up with a lot of foul language in order to get a higher age rating in a process that was called 15ing. And it isn't even just that. Since this dub was recorded in the UK, the dialogue as a whole comes off as kind of odd. I know Justin Savakis pointed this out in the documentary that's on the Blu-ray, but you had dialogue that was done by British actors, done with American accents, or the best American accents they could muster, while doing British slang with those American accents.
Wake up, you slovenly git.
Good morning, sunshine boy.
Yeah, cut the funny.
Cheer up, gentlemen. You're gonna be flatmates together.
Surely you can't be having a spot of bother with your machine.
Creates a very odd mixture, and yet, I gotta say, it kind of works. I'm not gonna be ashamed to say that I actually like this dub. And no, it's not because I have any real nostalgia for it. The first time I watched this anime was about 5 or 6 years ago when I was in college. I never grew up with this one. But when I watched it with this series, combined with the subject matter and the music that was used, it just strangely works. And yes, the Japanese audio version is probably better, but it doesn't have the cool Rory McFarlane soundtrack, which I'll get to in a moment. And in this series, the 15ing that I mentioned before doesn't come across as obnoxious or unintentionally hilarious, such as the case with Angel Cop. The second episode deals mostly with Gogol. He gets information about stolen data from the Japanese Special Forces from a guy who was trying to remove his own explosive collar.
Will you be able to get it off?
It's got 7 fuses. So far, I've only managed to get 4 out.
You know you've only got 15 minutes left.
Which fuse do you think comes next?
Take the right one.
Nah, I'll do the one on the left.
He didn't say who he sold the information to then?
I asked him, but he wasn't in any mood to talk. But we're not dealing with any small-time organization. They paid $50 million for it.
Meanwhile, Sengoku and Benton both investigate 2 different crimes that lead them to the same place. Sengoku involving a killer robot, or what looks like it based on a footprint, and Benton based on a lead he got from organ smugglers. Both of their clues lead them to a Japanese Special Forces base. The Special Forces are chasing an old partner of Gogol's named Sarah, who has a copy of the classified data. The classified data basically shows that the Japanese Special Forces are making their own version of the Ed 209.
I wasn't aware that a staff officer in the Imperial Japanese Army was much concerned with trivia like public order and safety.
But just at the moment, I have a particular personal interest in the crime rate. You see, the lack of a decent war to fight turns a man's mind to finding solutions for other problems. We're deeply concerned by the growing lawlessness in Oedo. This weapon has been developed specifically to maintain public order, and this is the perfect time to try it out.
And they will break it in, so to speak, by having it kill Gogol. How will this all end? Well, too bad. You guys are going to have to watch it later and find out. Watching this series really did remind me of how good of a director Yoshiaki Kawajiri is, especially when it comes to directing action. Each episode is visually exciting, visceral, you get a good feel for the stakes, and you root for our heroes, or anti-heroes I guess you could say. And Kawajiri manages to keep that level of quality from film to film. I also really like all of Kawajiri's protagonists. They have to use their wits and their strength in order to dispatch their enemies. And in Cyber City, and even in Ninja Scroll, all of his protagonists get the crap beat out of them before they actually start winning. I like these kinds of protagonists. Kawajiri's heroes, along with characters like Indiana Jones in the first 3 movies and only the first 3 movies, and Mad Max, and by Mad Max I'm talking Mel Gibson Mad Max, not Tom Hardy Mad Max, I personally find these heroes to be the most relatable, and I root for them the hardest. Episode 3 primarily deals with Benton. Before I go on, I have to say that each character has their own way of going about things. Sengoku is hot-headed and defiant. Gogol might have a bit of the defiant streak that Sengoku has, but he's more relaxed in what he does and a bit more calculating. And in the 3rd episode, we get more of a look into Benton, and he's a bit more mystical, shall we say.
The stars aren't in alignment tonight. It's a bad omen.
So you can read the stars. Are they always right?
Usually. Some nights it can be difficult to interpret them.
How many lifetimes must it have taken for that light to reach the Earth?
More than we can imagine, but the Earth is only the start of its great journey.
That would be the most terrible curse, to go on forever.
One day everything has to end. Even the light.
In this episode, Benton is investigating a series of murders, all of which have bite marks on them, similar to a vampire. And all of the victims were involved in genetic research. This episode seems to deal a little bit more of the investigative side of the cyber police, as we see Benton going about investigating people who knew or knew about the victims. All of this is leading up to an encounter with a man named Saionji, who is experimenting with super viruses in order to become immortal. Just roll with it. I mean, yes, you have Sengoku and Gogol doing their own investigations that relate to Benton's, but it is very appropriate that this episode is Benton's because it has a pretty gothic feel to it, especially since it deals with vampires and Saionji's base of operations is a kind of a castle in space. And in one of my favorite moments in this episode, Benton is chased by tigers who shoot lasers out of their mouths. Laser tigers. I really just said that. Now, when it comes to bringing anime over to the West, in most cases, I would prefer it to be as close to its original state as possible. I don't mind dubbing, but I like to keep the original sound effects and music intact. In fact, I'm often annoyed when the soundtrack is replaced, but not in the case with Cyber City Oedo 808. When Andy Freen from Manga UK got the rights to Cyber City, he heard the soundtrack by Kaz Toyama and was not impressed with it at all.
You know, the truth is, and this isn't just about Japanese animation now, but particularly lower budget filmmaking often tends to leave the music to last, or it's when the budget is squeezed. It's the thing that often goes first. You know, they'd rather pay a lead actor, oh no, we're not going to reduce his or her salary. We'll chop the music budget in half or down to a tenth. And I honestly find that quite extraordinary and a huge mistake, a big commercial mistake as well. Where the soundtrack was great, Akira, for example, wonderful soundtrack. And they, it's clear as well, not only they spent the money on it, but, they got the right people and, it enhances the film. It wasn't a little, £2.50 electronic score, on a Casio keyboard. Don't now remember specifically the soundtrack to Cyber City, but it wasn't good. In my humble opinion, I just felt it could be a lot better. But what was clear from the start was, this is really good. It's exciting, great characters, great kind of storyline, great whole thing about it. But, this music is dreadful.
So for the English dub that was printed in the UK, an alternate soundtrack was composed by Roy McFarlane, which made use of alternative rock, synthwave, ambient, and even some other kinds of music, in order to make a score for the show that was far more appropriate. I mean, it really does fit the material better. More to the point, would you rather have this? Or this. This? Or this? I rest my case. Upon release, Cyber City got off to a slow start, but it eventually became a cult classic, one that seems to be more popular in the West than in Japan, as I understand it. But despite its cult status, it seems to go underseen nowadays, as in I don't see many people talk about it. Apart from older anime fans, that is. And it's a pity because it has everything an otaku could possibly want. It has superb action, a beautiful art style, and animation that feels like movie quality in many respects. Seriously, this OVA is absolutely gorgeous. A narrative in each episode that keeps your attention, regardless of whatever flaws or nitpicks are present, and an English dub that strangely works no matter how many times I laugh at it. This is a superb piece of work from Yoshiaki Kawajiri, and I would say it is his first great work. Check it out as soon as you can.